The backstage corridor shook with a violent metallic crash, and before Jungkook could even turn around, Jin had already thrown himself between him and the falling lighting rig. "Jungkook, move!" The command cut through the roar of alarms. Jungkook froze for half a second. Above them, a massive section of equipment had broken loose from the ceiling. Cables whipped through the air like black snakes, sparks burst against the concrete floor, and the sharp smell of burning wires filled the corridor. Then Jin grabbed Jungkook by the back of his jacket and dragged him sideways. The rig slammed down exactly where Jungkook had been standing. The impact shook dust from the ceiling. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Jungkook stared at the wreckage, his breathing shallow. Jin was still gripping his jacket. "Hyung, are you hurt?" Jungkook blinked. I don't think so." "Don't think, check." Jin's voice was unusually sharp. Jungkook looked down at his arms, then his legs. Nothing appeared broken. There was a small cut across his palm, but otherwise he was unharmed. "I'm okay." Jin finally released him. Only then did Jungkook notice that Jin's own hand was bleeding. "You're hurt." Jin glanced at it. "It's nothing." "You're bleeding." "So are you." "Mine is tiny." "Then mine is tiny too." Despite everything, Jungkook almost laughed. But Jin wasn't smiling. His eyes remained fixed on the fallen equipment. There was something behind his expression that Jungkook recognized immediately. Fear. Not fear for himself. Fear for Jungkook. The emergency lights painted Jin's face in pulses of red, making him look strangely pale. "Stay here," Jin said. "Where are you going?" "To find out what happened." "I'm coming." "No." Jungkook stared at him. "No. No, you stay here." "Hyung, I can help." "I know." Jin stepped closer. "That is exactly why you stay." The word silenced him. Jin had always been like that. He joked when everyone else was exhausted. He cooked when nobody remembered to eat. He noticed when someone was unusually quiet. He remembered small preferences that even the people themselves sometimes forgot. But there was another side to him that rarely appeared. The side that became frighteningly serious whenever one of the others was in danger. Especially Jungkook. Jungkook had noticed it years ago. At first, he had assumed it was simply because Jin was the oldest. Then he realized it was more complicated than that. Jin didn't merely protect Jungkook. He watched him. Not in a controlling way, but in the quiet manner of someone who had memorized another person's habits without ever admitting it. He knew when Jungkook was pretending to be fine. He knew when Jungkook had skipped a meal. He knew when Jungkook's smile lasted half a second too long. And he knew that Jungkook had a dangerous habit of believing that being strong meant never asking for help. Jin turned toward the security team rushing down the corridor. "Keep him away from here." Jungkook frowned. "I can hear you." "Good." Then Jin disappeared into the smoke. Jungkook remained where he was. For once he didn't argue. He looked at his injured palm. Then at the place where Jin had stood between him and the falling steel. A strange heaviness settled in his chest. Because this wasn't the first time Jin had done something like that. It wasn't even the first time Jungkook had wondered how many times Jin had protected him without expecting him to notice. And suddenly, memories began returning. Years earlier, Jungkook had been standing alone in a rehearsal room long after everyone else had left. The music had stopped. The mirrors reflected a tired young man with damp hair and trembling hands. Again. He pressed play. Again. He missed the movement. Again. His knee hurt, but he ignored it. He had always believed that stopping meant falling behind. The door opened. "You're still here." Jungkook looked over his shoulder. Jin stood in the doorway holding 2 bowls of food. "I was just finishing." "You've been saying that for 40 minutes. Jungkook smiled. "Really?" "Yes." Jin walked inside and placed the food on the floor. "Zit. I need to practice this part." "Zit. Hyung. Jungkook." Something in Jin's voice made him stop. Jin pointed toward the floor. "Zit." Jungkook sighed and lowered himself. Jin sat beside him. For a while neither spoke. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioner. "You're injured," Jin finally said. Jungkook looked down. "It's nothing." "You always say that." "Because it's usually nothing." "That isn't the same thing." Jungkook looked at him. Jin opened the container and pushed it toward him. "Eat." "You're acting like my mother." "I'd rather be your mother than your emergency room doctor." Jungkook laughed. Jin smiled. But his eyes remained serious. "You don't have to prove your worth keeping around every day." Jungkook's smile faded. "I wasn't trying to." "Yes, you were." The words landed harder than Jungkook expected. He looked away. Jin didn't push him. That was another thing he had learned. Sometimes protection meant knowing when not to speak. They ate in silence. Years later, Jungkook would remember that moment more clearly than countless performances. Not because anything dramatic happened, but because Jin had noticed. He had noticed the pain Jungkook was hiding. He had noticed the exhaustion behind his eyes. He had noticed the fear Jungkook himself couldn't name. And he had stayed. That was Jin's way. He rarely announced that he cared. He simply appeared. When Jungkook forgot to eat, food appeared. When Jungkook stayed late, Jin stayed later. When Jungkook became too quiet, Jin found an excuse to sit beside him. When Jungkook doubted himself, Jin acted as though the doubt were ridiculous. And when Jungkook became reckless, Jin became the wall he couldn't walk through. Another memory surfaced. A cold winter morning. Jungkook had arrived at the studio early, his fingers numb and his throat dry. He wanted to finish recording before anyone else arrived. He had barely begun when the door opened. Jin entered wearing a coat, slippers, and an expression of complete disbelief. "You're here already?" Jungkook looked embarrassed. "I couldn't sleep." "Why?" "I kept thinking about the recording." Jin sighed. Then he removed his scarf and wrapped it around Jungkook's neck. "Hyung, I'm fine." "Your hands are freezing." "I'll warm up." "Your face is pale." "I'm fine." "You're terrible at lying." Jungkook smiled weakly. Jin looked at him for several seconds. Then he said quietly, "You know you don't have to carry everything alone." Jungkook lowered his eyes. There were things he couldn't explain. The fear of disappointing people. The pressure of becoming better. The strange loneliness that sometimes appeared even when surrounded by people he loved. He didn't know how to say any of it. So Jin didn't ask him to. He simply sat beside him. That was enough. Back in the present, the emergency lights flickered again. Jungkook looked down the corridor. "Hyung." No answer. He took a step forward. A security guard immediately stopped him. "Stay here." "But Jin is inside." "We're checking the area." Jungkook clenched his jaw. The minutes felt longer than they should have. Then Jin emerged. His hair was covered in dust. His sleeve was torn. His expression was exhausted. But he was standing. Jungkook immediately walked toward him. "What happened?" "Loose support bracket." "Was it an accident?" Jin hesitated. "Probably." Jungkook noticed the hesitation. "Probably." Jin looked at him. "Don't worry about it tonight." That answer made Jungkook even more uneasy. "Why?" "Because you're going home. You're avoiding the question." "I know." Jungkook stared at him. Jin sighed. "Some things can wait until morning." "But..." "Jungkook." Again that tone. Not angry. Protective. Jungkook stopped. Jin reached out and examined the cut on his palm. "You need this cleaned." "So do you." "I'll do mine later." "No." Jin raised an eyebrow. Jungkook pointed at him. "You taught me that rule." "What rules?" "That if you're hurt, you don't say it's nothing." Jin stared at him. Then slowly he smiled. "Did I?" "Yes." Sounds like something a wise person would say. "You're impossible." "I've been told." For the first time that night, Jungkook laughed. The tension loosened. But something had changed. Jungkook was beginning to understand that protection was not always dramatic. Sometimes it was a hand pulling him away from danger. Sometimes it was a bowl of food placed beside him. Sometimes it was an irritating question repeated until he admitted he was tired. Sometimes it was someone sitting silently beside him when words were impossible. And sometimes it was a person who quietly carried part of his fear so he wouldn't have to carry all of it himself. The following days returned to normal. Rehearsals continued. Schedules became crowded. The incident disappeared beneath meetings, recordings, performances, laughter, and exhaustion. But Jungkook couldn't forget it. One evening he found Jin alone in the kitchen. The room smelled of sesame oil and warm rice. Jin was preparing food while humming softly. Jungkook leaned against the doorway. "Hi Young. Why do you always look after me?" Jin stopped cutting vegetables. He didn't turn around immediately. "Because you're younger. That's not the whole reason." Jin finally looked back. For a moment his expression became unusually vulnerable. "You really want to know?" "Yes." Jin put down the knife. "When you were younger, you tried so hard to become someone everyone could depend on." Jungkook said nothing. "You were scared of being a burden." His smile faded. "And I recognized that." Jungkook swallowed. "You did." "I did." Jin leaned against the counter. "Because I was scared of the same thing." The kitchen became very quiet. Jungkook had never heard him say that before. Jin looked down at his hands. Sometimes the person who looks strongest is the person most afraid that nobody will stay if they stop being useful. Jungkook felt his throat tighten. "Hi Young. So I decided something a long time ago." "What?" "If you ever forgot that you were allowed to rest, I'd remind you." Jungkook smiled through the sudden sting in his eyes. "And if you forgot that someone would stay?" Jin smiled. "I'd remind you of that too." Neither spoke for several seconds. Then Jin pushed a bowl toward him. "Now eat." Jungkook laughed. "Seriously?" "Of course. You just said something incredibly emotional and then told me to eat." "Food is emotional." "That makes no sense." "It makes perfect sense." Jungkook sat down. For the first time, he understood that Jin's care had never been about making Jungkook dependent on him. It was about teaching him that he didn't have to face everything alone. Years passed. People changed. Schedules changed. The world around them became larger and louder. But small moments remained. Jin placing a jacket over Jungkook's shoulders when he fell asleep. Jin quietly moving a glass of water closer during a long conversation. Jin teasing Jungkook until he laughed after a difficult day. Jin noticing when Jungkook's hands were shaking before anyone else did. Jin standing beside him without demanding an explanation. And Jungkook eventually began doing the same. He started noticing Jin's exhaustion. He began bringing him food before Jin could claim he wasn't hungry. He learned the meaning behind Jin's quietness. He learned when a joke was genuine and when it was hiding fatigue. Their relationship slowly became something more balanced. Protection stopped moving in one direction. They were no longer simply the older member looking after the younger one. They became two people who had learned how to recognize each other's silence. One night, long after the others had gone to sleep, Jungkook found Jin sitting alone by a window. The city lights shimmered below them. "You can't sleep." Jin shook his head. "You?" "Not really." Jungkook sat beside him. Neither spoke. Cars moved far below. Rain tapped softly against the glass. After several minutes, Jin whispered, "Do you remember that night with the lighting rig?" "Yes." "You were terrified." "So were you." Jin smiled. "Maybe." "You were." "Okay." Jungkook looked at him. "Thank you." Jin frowned. "For what?" "For always noticing." Jin's expression softened. "Your family." Jungkook looked toward the city. "So are you." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was comfortable. Complete. Years of laughter, arguments, exhaustion, victories, mistakes, and quiet moments seemed to exist inside that silence. Jungkook realized something then. The moments that mattered most were rarely the spectacular ones. They were the moments nobody photographed. The forgotten meals. The late-night conversations. The jacket placed over tired shoulders. The hand reaching out before someone could fall. The quiet question, "Are you okay?" And the even quieter answer, I'm here. Jin had looked out for Jungkook in countless ways. Not because Jungkook was helpless. Not because Jin believed he needed to control his life. But because Jin understood something simple and profound. Sometimes loving someone meant noticing the things they tried hardest to hide. Sometimes it meant standing between them and danger. Sometimes it meant making them laugh when they wanted to cry. And sometimes it meant sitting beside them in complete silence until they remembered that they were not alone. Jungkook leaned his head against the window. Jin glanced at him. Tired. A little. Go sleep. In a minute. Jin smiled. Fine. They stayed there. The rain continued falling. The city continued glowing. And for one quiet moment, neither of them needed to say anything. Because after all those years, they already understood. Some bonds were built through grand promises. Theirs had been built through ordinary moments. A meal. A warning. A laugh. A hand on a shoulder. A door opening at the right time. A voice saying, "Stay here." And a promise that was never spoken aloud but somehow never broken. You don't have to face everything by yourself. The door slammed so hard that the framed photograph on the wall rattled, and Jungkook spun around just in time to see Jin standing in the hallway with an expression he had never seen before. You lied to me. Jin's voice was low, almost frighteningly calm. Jungkook stared at him, his fingers still wrapped around the phone he had been holding. What? Don't do that. Jin stepped inside and shut the door behind him. Don't look at me like you have no idea what I'm talking about. Jungkook's heartbeat accelerated. I genuinely don't. Then why did you delete the message? Silence. The room suddenly felt smaller. Outside the window, Seoul glittered beneath a layer of rain, but inside the air seemed frozen. Jungkook slowly lowered his phone. Which message? Jin laughed once, but there was no humor in it. Exactly. Jungkook's jaw tight. Hyung, if you came here to accuse me of something, at least tell me what you think I did. I think you met someone without telling anyone. So, Jin repeated, his eyes widening. After what happened at the venue, you thought it was a good idea to meet someone secretly. It wasn't dangerous. You don't know that, neither do you. That's the problem. Jin's voice suddenly rose. Jungkook flinched and Jin immediately noticed. For a second, regret crossed his face, but anger quickly returned. You keep saying everything is fine. You kept saying the equipment falling was nothing. You kept saying the messages were nothing. You keep walking around like nothing can touch you. Because I don't want everyone panicking every time something happens, Jungkook fired back. Then let me panic, Jin snapped. The words hung between them. Jungkook stared at him. Jin's chest rose and fell rapidly. What? Jungkook whispered. Jin looked away. Forget it. No, say it again. I said forget it. No, you don't get to say something like that and then walk away. Jin turned toward him. Fine, I worry about you. More than I should sometimes, more than is healthy, happy. Jungkook's expression changed. Why would you say that like it's something bad? Because it is bad when you start hiding things from me. I didn't hide anything. Then explain the message. Jungkook looked at his phone. His thumb hovered over the screen. Someone contacted me. Who? I don't know. Jin stared at him. You don't know? No. And you met them? Yes. Alone? Yes. Jin closed his eyes. Unbelievable. You asked me to explain. I did, and now I'm trying to understand how you could possibly think this was a good idea. Jungkook's temper rose. Because I wanted to handle one thing myself. Why? Because I'm tired of everyone treating me like I'm still that kid who needs someone standing behind him. Jin went completely still. Jungkook immediately regretted the words, but the anger inside him had already broken through. I appreciate everything you've done, he continued, his voice trembling, but sometimes it feels like you don't trust me. That's not true. Then why do you keep watching me? Because you matter to me. That isn't an answer. It is to me. Jin slammed his palm against the table. You think I watch you because I believe you're weak. I watch you because I know how quickly people can take advantage of someone who thinks he can handle everything alone. Jungkook stepped closer. And how do you know that? Jin's face changed. The anger disappeared for a moment, replaced by something much older, something wounded. Because I've seen it happen. To you, Jin didn't answer. Hyung, don't. What happened? I said don't. You're always telling me to be honest with you. This isn't about me. Then stop making it about me. The room went silent. Jin stared at him for several seconds, then he pulled out his phone and placed it on the table. Look, Jungkook hesitated before picking it up. There was a photograph on the screen. It showed the backstage area from the night the lighting rig had fallen. At first, Jungkook couldn't understand what he was looking at. Then he noticed the shadow in the far corner. Someone was standing behind a service door, someone who shouldn't have been there. Who is that? Jungkook whispered. That's what I've been trying to find out. Jin took the phone back. The security team reviewed the footage. The person entered using an access card that was supposed to be inactive. Maybe it was staff. Maybe. Then why are you so worried? Because the same person appeared in another recording. Jin swiped to another image. It was from the rehearsal building. The figure was barely visible behind a glass door. Jungkook's stomach tight. When was this? 3 days before the incident. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you doing exactly what you just did. Jungkook stared at him. Meeting someone. Yes, who? The person who contacted you. Jungkook froze. Think it's the same person. I don't know. Then why are you angry at me? Jin's expression hardened. Because you met them without telling me. I didn't know it was them. Exactly. Jungkook paced across the room. What did they say? They knew things about you. Jin paused. Things they shouldn't know. Jungkook looked up. Like what? Your schedule, places you visited, private details about your routines. The blood drained from Jungkook's face. What kind of details? Things about when you leave the studio. Things about which entrances you use. Things about who usually stays late. Jungkook swallowed. Did they threaten me? Not directly. Then what did they want? Jin hesitated. They wanted you to stop trusting me. Jungkook stared at him. What? They told you that I was hiding something from you. A cold silence settled over the room. Jungkook slowly sat down. They said you knew why the accident happened. Jin's eyes narrowed. They told you that? Yes, and you believed them. I didn't know what to believe. So you met them again? Yes. Why? Jungkook looked down. Because they said they had proof. Jin's voice dropped. Proof of what? That the accident wasn't an accident. Jin stared at him. What did they show you? Nothing. Nothing. They told me to come back alone. Jin's expression changed instantly. When? Tomorrow. No. Hayoung, absolutely not. You can't decide that. I can if you're walking into a trap. And what if it isn't a trap? Then we investigate it properly. They won't talk to anyone else. Then they don't talk. What if they're telling the truth? Jin's jaw tight. Then we'll find the truth without putting you in danger. You keep saying danger. Jungkook stood. Maybe I'm tired of being afraid. Jin stared at him. You think I'm afraid because I don't want you to go? Yes. No. Jin took a breath. I'm afraid because I know what happens when people decide someone is useful to them. Jungkook looked at him carefully. What aren't you telling me? Jin said nothing. What happened to you? Jungkook, you said you've seen this before. Drop it. No, please. The last word was so quiet that Jungkook stopped. Jin rarely said please like that, not as a joke, not playfully. It sounded exhausted. I trusted someone once, Jin finally said. A long time ago, someone who claimed they wanted to help. He looked toward the window. They collected information, little things, nothing seemed important at first, where I went, who I spoke to. What I was worried about, what I was good at, what I wasn't. Jungkook listened without moving. Then one day they used it against me. How? They made me believe I had caused a problem that wasn't my fault. Jin smiled bitterly. And because I was already afraid of disappointing everyone, I believed them. Jungkook's voice softened. You blamed yourself. For years. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because I thought admitting it would make me look weak. Jungkook's eyes filled with emotion. Hayoung. Jin looked at him. That's why I watch you. Jungkook looked away. Because I recognize the same fear in you. I don't want to become like that. I know. Then trust me. Jin's eyes narrowed slightly. Trust doesn't mean letting you walk into a dark room alone. Jungkook smiled sadly. And protecting me doesn't mean locking every door. Jin didn't answer. The argument had reached a strange stillness, the kind that comes when anger has burned away everything except honesty. Then Jungkook's phone vibrated. Both men looked at it. One new message, unknown number. Jungkook opened it. There was no greeting, no explanation, only a photograph. His blood turned cold. It showed Jin standing outside the building earlier that evening. The photograph had been taken from across the street. Beneath it were 6 words. You should have LISTNED 2HIM. Jungkook's fingers trembled. Jin took the phone from his hand. Don't respond. Hayoung, don't. Another message arrived. This isn't about JUNGKOK. It's about what Jin KNOWS. Jin's face went pale. Jungkook noticed. What does that mean? Jin didn't answer. What do you know? Still nothing. Hayoung. Jin looked at him. For the first time, Jungkook saw genuine fear in his eyes. Not fear of losing control, not fear of being exposed, fear of something coming back, something Jin had spent years trying to bury. I need to make a call, he said. To whom? Someone I haven't spoken to in a very long time. Who? Jin walked toward the door. Jungkook followed. You said you wanted me to trust you. Jin stopped. I do. Then don't leave me in the dark. Jin turned around. I'm not leaving you in the dark. He paused. I'm trying to keep you out of it. That's the same thing. Jin looked at him for a long moment. Then he took out his phone and dialed a number from memory. The call connected after several rings. Jin didn't speak immediately. His eyes remained fixed on Jungkook. Finally, a voice answered. Jin's expression hardened. It's me. Silent. Yes, after all these years. Another pause. Jin's fingers tightened around the phone. I need to know whether you're still involved. Jungkook's heart began pounding. Jin listened. His expression changed from anger to disbelief. No, he took a step backward. That's impossible. The voice on the other end continued speaking. Jin's eyes slowly moved toward the window. When? Another pause. Tonight. His face went completely still. Are you sure? He listened again. Then he whispered, he's already inside. The call ended. Jungkook stared at him. Who's inside? Jin didn't answer. Hayoung, who's inside? Jin walked toward the door and locked it. Stay away from the window. Jungkook's breath caught. Why? Jin turned off the lights. The apartment plunged into darkness. Outside, rain slid down the glass. Somewhere below, a car door slammed, then another. Jin moved silently toward the curtains. Jungkook whispered, what are you doing? Listening. They waited. Footsteps echoed faintly in the hallway outside. One step, then another, slow, deliberate. Jungkook's heart hammered against his ribs. Jin raised one finger to his lips. The footsteps stopped directly outside their door. Neither moved. A shadow appeared beneath the gap. Someone was standing there. Then the door handle slowly turned. Jin grabbed Jungkook's wrist and pulled him backward. The handle stopped. A quiet knock followed, 3 times. Jin stared at the door. Jungkook whispered, who is it? Jin shook his head. The knock came again 3 times. Then a voice spoke through the door. Jin. Jin's face changed. Jungkook had never seen him look like that. Who is it? Jungkook whispered again. Jin's voice was barely audible. Someone who should be dead. The room seemed to lose all warmth. The voice outside spoke again. Open the door. Jin didn't move. You know I can't stay out here forever. Jungkook looked at Jin. Who is he? Jin's eyes remained fixed on the door. Someone from before. Before what? Jin swallowed. Before everything changed. The voice outside laughed softly. You still protect him, don't you? Jungkook's blood ran cold. How does he know about me? Jin stepped in front of Jungkook. Because he knows me. Then tell me who he is. Not now. When I know how much he knows. The voice outside became colder. You always were good at hiding things, Seokjin. Jin's expression hardened. Leave. No, I can't. Leave. You think protecting Jungkook will change what happened? Jin's hand curled into a fist. Don't say his name. Why? Afraid he'll finally ask the right questions. Jungkook looked at Jin. What happened? Jin didn't answer. The person outside continued. Tell him why the accident happened. Jungkook's breathing stopped. What accident? Jin closed his eyes. The voice laughed quietly. Ah, so you never told him. Enough. You told him you were protecting him, didn't you? Enough. Jin shouted. The door shook. But you never told him that someone was protecting you first. Jungkook stared at Jin. What does that mean? Jin turned around. His eyes were wet. It means I made a mistake. What mistake? Years ago someone warned me about a group of people who were collecting information about us. Jungkook's voice trembled. And you ignored them? No. Jin looked down. I tried to investigate. Alone? Yes. Why? Because I thought I could solve it without involving everyone. Jungkook laughed bitterly. You did exactly what you're angry at me for doing. Jin nodded slowly. Yes, and what happened? Someone got hurt. Jungkook's face fell. Who? Jin couldn't answer. The voice outside answered for him. Me. Silence. Jungkook stared at the door. What? He thought I betrayed him. The voice continued. And maybe I did. Jin whispered. You weren't supposed to survive. Neither were you. Jungkook looked between them. What is happening? Jin stepped toward him. I wanted to protect you from this. By hiding it. Yes, then you failed. Jin flinched. Jungkook immediately regretted saying it, but he couldn't stop now. You keep telling me secrets are dangerous, but you've been carrying one for years. I know, and now someone is at our door. I know, and they know my name. I know. Then stop protecting me from the truth. Jin stared at him. The anger in his face slowly disappeared. Okay. He took a deep breath. Years ago, before you understood what it meant to be watched by millions of people, there were people trying to build influence around us. They wanted access, information, connections. They didn't care about music. They cared about control. Jungkook listened. I found evidence. I tried to expose them. Someone I trusted helped me. Him? Yes. Then why did you say he betrayed you? Because he disappeared with the evidence. The person outside laughed. Because Jin gave it to me. Jungkook looked at Jin. Jin shook his head. I didn't. You did. I thought I was sending it to someone else. And that's when everything started. Jungkook's voice was quiet. You made a mistake. Yes, and someone got hurt. Yes, who? Jin looked at him. Someone who tried to protect me. Jungkook felt tears forming. You never told me, because I was ashamed. You don't get to decide what I can handle. Jin nodded. You're right. The voice outside spoke again. Finally. Then the building lights suddenly went out. The hallway fell silent. A second later the door lock clicked. Jin grabbed Jungkook's arm. Run. Where? Back entrance. What about you? I'm right behind you. They moved through the darkness. Jungkook could hear his own breathing, the rain, the distant hum of emergency generators. Then something crashed behind them. Jin pushed Jungkook forward. Go, Hyung, Geo. Jungkook ran. He reached the back stairwell and turned. Jin was still behind him. A shadow moved through the darkness. Jin shoved the stairwell door open. They ran down together. Faster, Jin shouted. I'm trying. Don't stop. I'm not. Their footsteps thundered through the stairwell. Suddenly Jin stumbled. Jungkook grabbed him. You're hurt. Keep moving. No, Jungkook, I'm not leaving you. Jin stared at him. For a moment everything stopped. Then Jin smiled faintly. You really did learn. Learn what? How to protect someone without asking permission. They continued downward. Behind them the stairwell door opened. Someone was following. The sound of footsteps grew louder. Jungkook looked at Jin. We need another way. Jin pointed toward a maintenance door. There, they pushed through. Cold rain hit their faces. They emerged into an alley behind the building. Cars passed at the far end. Jin grabbed Jungkook's shoulder. Don't look back. Why? Because if you look back you'll hesitate. Jungkook obeyed. They ran through the rain. Behind them the footsteps stopped. They reached a waiting vehicle. Jin opened the door. Get in. Jungkook climbed inside. Jin followed. The driver accelerated before the doors had fully closed. For several minutes nobody spoke. Then Jungkook looked at Jin. You're bleeding again. Jin looked at his sleeve. It's not bad. You always say that. Jin smiled weakly. I know. Jungkook leaned back exhausted. You should have told me. Jin stared out the window. I know. I'm angry. I know. I'm scared. Jin turned toward him. I know. But I'm not leaving. Jin's eyes softened. I know. Jungkook wiped his face. And tomorrow you're telling me everything. Jin nodded. Everything. The city lights blurred across the rain-covered window as the vehicle disappeared into the night. Neither of them knew where the road would lead next, but for the first time, Jungkook understood that protecting someone did not mean hiding the truth from them. Sometimes the hardest form of protection was trusting them enough to face the truth together. The rain hammered against the windshield as Jungkook suddenly grabbed Jin's wrist and said, Stop the car. Jin turned toward him. What? Stop the car? Why? Because you're lying again. The driver glanced nervously at them through the rearview mirror, but Jin immediately shook his head. Keep driving. Jungkook's eyes hardened. I said stop the car, and I said keep driving. You promised me everything. Jin looked away. I promised. Then tell me why the driver knows where we're going. Jin's expression changed. The driver said nothing. Jungkook leaned forward. Who is he? Someone I trust. You trusted someone before. Jin went silent, and look where that got us. The word struck harder than Jungkook intended. Jin slowly turned toward him. You think I don't know that? Then stop making decisions for me. I'm trying to keep you alive, and I'm trying to understand why someone wants me dead. The driver's hands tightened around the steering wheel. Jin lowered his voice. Not here, then where? Somewhere secure. Secure according to whom? According to me. Jungkook laughed bitterly. That's exactly the problem. Jin's eyes flashed. You think this is a game? No, then stop acting like you know what you're dealing with. I know enough to know you've been hiding something for years, Jin's jaw tight, because I didn't want you carrying my mistakes. They're already chasing me, Jungkook shouted. Your secrets are already affecting me. The car became silent. Rain slid down the windows in silver streams. Jin finally said, you're right. Jungkook blinked. He hadn't expected that. What? You're right. Jin stared at the floor. I should have told you. Then tell me now. I can't. Jungkook's expression hardened. Why? Because if I tell you everything before we're somewhere safe, whoever is watching us will know exactly what we know. How do you know we're being watched? Jin looked at him. Because the person who contacted you knew something that only 3 people should know. Who are the other 2? Jin didn't answer. Who? One is dead. Jungkook's breathing slowed. And the other? Jin looked toward the driver. Jungkook followed his gaze. You're saying he's the other one? The driver finally spoke. No, his voice was calm. I'm saying Jin isn't telling you the whole truth. Jin's face went cold. Don't. He deserves to know. I said don't. You've been protecting him by lying to him. Driver looked at Jungkook through the mirror. You should ask him what happened the night your first major contract was almost destroyed. Jungkook stared at Jin. What is he talking about? Jin's voice became quiet. Keep driving. Hyung, not now. You said everything. I know. Then tell me. Jin closed his eyes. There was a threat. Against you. Against all of us. What kind? A threat that could have ended everything. Jungkook leaned forward. What did they want? Money at first. And then. Control. Jungkook frowned. Control over what? Our schedules, our access, our private information, people around us. Why would anyone want that? Because information is power, the driver interrupted, and because somebody inside was feeding it to them. Jungkook's eyes widened. Someone inside, Jin immediately said, don't listen to him. Why? Because he's trying to make you suspicious of everyone. Maybe because everyone deserves to be suspicious. Jin stared at him, including me. Jungkook didn't answer. The vehicle suddenly swerved. Jin grabbed the seat. What happened? The driver looked in the mirror. We have company. Behind them 2 black vehicles had appeared through the rain. Jungkook's heart jumped. Are they following us? Yes. Jin's voice became calm. How many? 2. Can you lose them? Not without taking a risk. Take it. Jungkook looked at him. What are you doing? Getting you somewhere safe. And you? I'll deal with them. No. Jungkook, no. This isn't a discussion. It is if I'm the reason they're following us. Jin turned toward him. You are not the reason. Then why are they after me? Because they think you're the easiest way to get to me. Jungkook's face fell. So this really is about you. Jin hesitated. Partly. What does that mean? It means someone wants something I have. What? Jin looked at the driver. The driver said, the archive. Jungkook frowned. What archive? Jin's expression became grim. Evidence. Evidence of what? Everyone involved. The cars behind them accelerated. The driver pushed harder on the accelerator. Tires hissed over wet asphalt. Jungkook gripped the seat. This is insane. Jin reached for his phone. Call the others. Jungkook looked at him. What? Tell them not to leave wherever they are. Why? Because if they are watching me, they may be watching all of you. Jungkook immediately dialed. The first call went unanswered. The second rang several times before connecting. Hello. Jungkook's voice shook. Where are you? At the dorm. Don't leave. A pause. Why? Just trust me. Jungkook, what's happening? I can't explain right now. Jin leaned closer. Tell him to lock every entrance. Jungkook repeated it. The voice on the phone became serious. Are you in danger? Yes. Silence. Where are you? I don't know. Jungkook, I'll call you back. He ended the call. Jin looked at him. Good. You sound like a teacher. Someone has to be responsible. You mean you? Usually. Jungkook almost smiled, but the smile vanished when the vehicle behind them rammed the rear bumper. The impact threw them forward. Jin immediately grabbed Jungkook and pulled him down. Stay down. Another impact. The driver cursed. They're trying to push us off the road. Can you get to the tunnel? Jin asked. If we make the next turn. Do it. There may be civilians. Then don't take the risk. You just told me to take a risk. Not with innocent people. Jungkook looked at Jin. Even in the chaos, Jin's instinct was still to protect strangers. The driver took the turn sharply. The pursuing vehicles followed. One slid sideways and nearly struck a barrier. The other remained behind them. One car is gone, the driver said. One remains. Jin looked out the rear window. He's staying with us. What do we do? Jungkook asked. We keep moving. Where? Jin took a breath. To the old studio. Jungkook frowned. The one you said you never wanted to visit again. Jin nodded. Yes, the driver looked at him. Are you sure? It's the last place they'll expect. That's because they know you hate it. Exactly. The vehicle disappeared into a darker stretch of road. Minutes later, they arrived at an abandoned building hidden behind warehouses. The rain had weakened to a mist. Jin stepped out first. Stay behind me. Jungkook sighed. Seriously? Yes. I can walk. I know. I can defend myself. I know. Then stop saying stay behind me. Jin looked at him. Fine. He moved beside Jungkook. Stay beside me. Jungkook smiled despite himself. Better. They entered the building. Dust floated through the flashlight beam. The smell of old wood and damp concrete filled the air. Jin walked toward a wall and pressed his hand against a section of cracked plaster. A hidden panel opened. Jungkook stared. You knew this was here. I helped build it. Why? Because I was paranoid. For once your paranoia might be useful. Jin smiled faintly. That's what I've been saying. Inside the hidden room were shelves filled with boxes, hard drives, notebooks, photographs, and sealed envelopes. Jungkook's expression changed. What is all this? The past. How far back? Far enough. Jin walked to a metal box. His hand trembled slightly as he opened it. Inside was a small drive. This is what they want. Jungkook stared at it. What's on it? Names. Whose names? People who had access to private information. Staff, some. Managers, some. Friends, Jin hesitated. Some. Members, Jin looked directly at him. No, Jungkook exhaled. Thank God. Jin's expression didn't change. Don't be so cert. Jungkook froze. What does that mean? It means someone can betray you without being part of the group. You mean someone close to us? Yes. Who? I don't know. Then what good is this? It proves the network existed, but not who is behind it. Not yet. Jungkook picked up one of the photographs. It showed a group of people standing outside an old building. One face had been circled in red. Who's this? Jin didn't answer. Hyung, put it down. Why? Because that person is dangerous. Jungkook looked closer. I recognize him. Jin's expression changed. From where? He was at the venue. Jin stepped forward. Are you sure? Yes. Where? Near the service entrance. Jin took the photograph. His hands began shaking. That's impossible. Why? Because he's supposed to be dead. Jungkook stared at him. Again, Jin didn't respond. Everyone from your past is apparently supposed to be dead. It's not funny. I'm not joking. Jin looked at the photograph. This was taken 6 years ago. And he disappeared 6 years ago. So maybe he didn't disappear. No, Jin's voice was barely audible. He died. The room fell silent. Then a noise came from outside, a metallic scrape. Jin immediately turned off the flashlight. Someone's here. Jungkook whispered, how do you know? Because the door wasn't open when we arrived. The driver drew a small flashlight and moved toward the entrance. Jin raised a hand. Wait, a voice echoed from the corridor. Jin. Jungkook's heart pounded. It's him. Jin nodded. Don't answer. The voice laughed. You brought Jungkook with you. Jin closed his eyes. How does he know? The voice continued. You always make the same mistake. Jungkook whispered, what mistake? Jin looked at him, trusting the wrong people. Hidden door suddenly shook. Open it. Jin grabbed Jungkook's shoulder. We have another exit. Where? Behind the shelves. How do you know? Because I built this room. The door shook again. We don't have much time. They moved the shelves aside. A narrow passage appeared. Jungkook entered first. Jin followed. The driver stayed behind. What are you doing? Jungkook whispered, buying us time. No, Jungkook turned. He's coming with us. The driver shook his head. Someone has to make sure the passage stays clear. Then I'll stay. No, Jin grabbed Jungkook. You're coming, but this is not the moment to prove anything. And what about you? I'm coming. They moved through the passage. Behind them, the hidden room door burst open. A loud crash echoed through the walls, then footsteps. They're inside, the driver whispered. They hurried forward. The passage opened into an underground garage. An old vehicle waited there. Jin unlocked it. Get in. Jungkook climbed inside. The driver followed. Jin started the engine. Where now? Jungkook asked. Jin stared ahead. Somewhere they can't reach. Does such a place exist? Jin smiled without humor. I'm beginning to doubt it. The vehicle drove into the night. For almost 20 minutes nobody spoke. Then Jungkook said, I want the truth. Jin nodded. You'll get it. No more half answers. Okay. No more protecting me with lies. Okay. And if someone is trying to use me to get to you, I need to know everything. Jin looked at him. Okay. Jungkook stared out the window. Then tell me why the person outside called me by name. Jin's face tight. Because someone gave him your information. Who? I don't know. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Then find out. Jin looked at him. I will. And if it's someone we know, we'll deal with it. Even if it hurts. Jin's voice became quiet. Especially then. The vehicle stopped at a secure facility. They entered through a side entrance. The building was almost empty. Jin led Jungkook into a conference room and locked the door. He placed the metal box on the table. Before I open this, you need to understand something. What? Whatever you see, don't assume everyone is guilty. I won't, and don't confront anyone alone. Jungkook smiled slightly. You're really stuck on that, because you're really bad at listening. Maybe I'm getting better. Jin opened the box. Inside were documents, photographs, and a handwritten journal. He opened the journal. This is mine. Jungkook looked at the pages. You wrote all of this? Yes. Why? Because I was afraid I'd forget. Forget what? Jin swallowed. The names, the dates, the lies. He turned a page. The first warning came 6 years ago. From whom? A security consultant. The person outside? No. Then who? Jin pointed to a name. Jungkook read it. Park Min-hee. He's dead. Yes. How? Officially an accident. Jungkook looked up. Officially, there was never a full investigation. Why? Because someone made sure there wasn't. Who? Jin shook his head. That's what I never discovered. Jungkook looked at the photographs, and this person, he pointed to the man circled in red. He was Min-hee's partner, and he supposedly died afterward. Yes, but we saw him. I saw him. At the venue. Yes. Jungkook's voice became quiet. Then someone has been lying about the dead. Jin nodded. Or someone has been using the identities of the dead. A sudden sound came from the hallway. Both froze. 3 knocks. Jin slowly stood. Who's there? No answer. Jungkook whispered, don't open it. Jin looked at him. I'm not planning to. Another knock, then a voice. Jungkook, he recognized it immediately. Who is that? Jin whispered. One of the members. Jungkook moved toward the door. Jin grabbed him. Wait, it's him. I know. Then open it. No, why? Because he shouldn't know we're here. Jungkook's face changed. What? Jin stared at the door. I never told him. Silence. The voice outside spoke again. Jungkook, I know you're in there. Jungkook's eyes filled with confusion. How? Jin whispered. That's the question. The door handle moved. Jin stepped in front of Jungkook. Don't move. The handle stopped. Then the voice said, Jin, if you don't open this door, he dies. Jungkook's blood went cold. What? Jin's expression became unreadable. The voice continued. You have 30 seconds. Jin looked at Jungkook. Whatever happens, don't trust the voice. Why? Because I know that person. Who is it? Jin whispered. It's someone we thought was protecting us. The lights suddenly went out, a scream echoed somewhere in the building, then a loud impact struck the door. Jungkook grabbed Jin's arm. What do we do? Jin looked at him. We stay together. The door began to crack. No matter what, Jin whispered. We stay together. The door shook again. Jungkook tightened his grip. I won't leave you. Jin looked at him and smiled faintly. I know. The door burst open and a figure stood in the darkness. Jungkook couldn't see the face. The figure raised a hand. Jin stepped forward. Don't. The figure stopped, then the emergency lights came on. Jungkook stared. It wasn't an enemy, it was someone he knew, someone who had been trusted for years, someone who had always appeared whenever the members needed help. Jin's face drained of color. You, the man smiled sadly. I'm sorry, Jin. Jungkook looked between them. What is happening? The man lowered his hand. You deserve the truth. Jin stepped forward. Don't you dare. The man's eyes moved toward Jungkook. Your brother has been protecting you from me for years. Jungkook froze. Brother? Jin's eyes widened. He's not my brother. The man smiled. No, but you treated him like one. He looked at Jungkook. And that's exactly why you're the only person who can destroy everything he built. Jin moved toward him. Get away from him. The man's expression hardened. You still don't understand, do you? Understand what? The accident wasn't meant to kill Jungkook. Jin stopped. It was meant to scare you. Jungkook's breathing became shallow. Why? The man looked directly at Jin. Because someone wants you to open the archive. Jin's eyes fell to the metal box. The man's smile returned. And now you have. Jungkook looked at the box. How did he know? Jin didn't answer. The man stepped backward. You should ask your driver. Everyone turned. The driver stood near the doorway. His expression was blank. Jin stared at him. What did you do? The driver said nothing. Jungkook looked at him. You betrayed us. The driver shook his head. No. Then explain. I didn't betray you. Then why does he know where we are? The driver looked at Jin. Because Jin told him. Jin's face went pale. What? You told me to contact him if things went wrong. I never said that. You did 6 years ago. Jin stared at him. No. The driver reached into his coat and pulled out a recording device. He pressed play. Jin's own voice filled the room. If anything happens to me, contact him. Don't tell anyone else. Jungkook stared at Jin. You did say it. Jin looked horrified. I don't remember. The driver whispered. That's because you weren't supposed to. Jin's face changed. What does that mean? The driver stepped closer. Someone altered your memory. Jungkook's eyes widened. That's impossible, is it? The driver pointed toward the journal. Look at the dates. Jungkook opened it. Several pages were missing. Jin stared at them. I didn't tear those out. Exactly. The man who had entered earlier smiled. Someone has been editing your story for years. Jin's breathing became unsteady. Who? The man looked at Jungkook. That's the question. Jungkook stepped toward him. Then tell me. I can't. Why? Because the person responsible is closer than you think. Jin grabbed Jungkook's shoulder. Don't listen. Jungkook pulled away. Stop. Jin froze. I need answers. I'm trying. No, you're trying to protect me. Because I love you. The room went completely silent. Jin's voice cracked. Because you're family to me, and every time I think I've finally put this behind us, it comes back. Jungkook's anger dissolved into shock. Jin continued, tears gathering in his eyes. I have spent years believing that if I carried enough of the pain myself, none of you would have to. He looked at Jungkook. But I was wrong. Jungkook whispered, you were. Jin nodded. I know. You don't have to carry it alone. I know. Then let me stand beside you. Jin closed his eyes. Okay. For one moment the room became strangely quiet. Then the man near the door spoke. Beautiful. Jin turned sharply. What? The man smiled. That's exactly what they wanted. Who? The people behind this. Why? Because they wanted to see whether you would finally trust him. Jungkook's face tight. Why would they care? The man's smile disappeared. Because the person who controls the archive doesn't need to control Jin. He looked at Jungkook. They need to control you. The lights flickered. The driver suddenly shouted down. A loud crack echoed through the room. Glass shattered. Jin grabbed Jungkook and pulled him to the floor. Another impact struck the wall. Everyone scattered. Stay down, Jin shouted. Jungkook crawled behind the table. Where did that come from? Window, the driver shouted. Jin looked toward the broken glass. Sniper, maybe. The man near the door disappeared into the hallway. Jin reached for Jungkook. Come with me. Where? Away from the windows and the archive. Leave it. Jungkook looked at the box. They want it. Exactly. Then we can't leave it. Jungkook, if we take it we know what they're after. Jin stared at him. That's too dangerous. Everything is dangerous now. Jin hesitated, then he grabbed the box. Fine. They ran through the back corridor. The driver followed. Behind them alarms began screaming. The building filled with flashing red lights. Jungkook's lungs burned. Where are we going? Basement. Why? There is another exit. They reached the basement and stopped. The door ahead was locked. Jin tried the handle. Nothing. It's locked. Can you open it? No. Jungkook looked behind them. They're coming. Footsteps echoed above. Jin turned toward the archive box. There's another way. What? The ventilation shaft. Jungkook stared at him. You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking? No. Good. Jin opened a maintenance panel. You go first. No, Jungkook, you first. I'm bigger. Exactly. Jin almost laughed. This is not the time. Then stop arguing. Jin shook his head. You really have become difficult. I learned from you. They climbed into the shaft. Dust filled the air. Metal groaned beneath their weight. Behind them the basement door opened. Voices echoed. They're here. Jin whispered. Keep moving. Jungkook crawled faster. I can't believe we're doing this. You wanted the truth. I didn't mean through an air duct. Be specific next time. Despite the danger, Jungkook laughed quietly. Jin smiled. Then the metal beneath them suddenly cracked. Jungkook slipped. Hyung Jin grabbed his wrist. I've got you. Jungkook dangled above the dark shaft. Don't let go. I'm not letting go. Jin, look at me. Jungkook looked up. You're okay. I'm falling, not if I can help it. Jin pulled with everything he had. His injured shoulder screamed with pain. Come on. Jungkook grabbed the edge. Jin dragged him upward. They collapsed together. For several seconds neither moved. Jungkook breathed heavily. You okay? Jin asked. Yes, good. You're bleeding. Again. Jin laughed softly. Apparently that's becoming my thing. Jungkook looked at him. You saved me. Jin shook his head. You saved yourself. You pulled me up because you reached for my hand. Jungkook's eyes softened. Would you have reached for mine if I hadn't? Jin smiled. Always. They continued crawling until they reached an exit. Cold night air hit their faces. They emerged behind the building. The rain had stopped. The city was quiet. For the first time in hours there was no one chasing them. Jungkook sat against the wall. Jin lowered himself beside him. The archive box rested between them. We still don't know who did this, Jungkook said. No, we don't know who betrayed us. No. We don't know who the man outside was working for. No, Jungkook sighed. This is a terrible investigation. Jin smiled. You're not wrong. Jungkook looked at him. But we know one thing. What? We're doing it together. Jin looked at him for several seconds. Together. Jungkook reached for the box. Then let's open it. Jin hesitated. Are you sure? Yes. Once we open it there's no going back. Jungkook met his eyes. There was never going back. Jin slowly nodded. He opened the box. Inside the archive was a single sealed envelope that neither of them had noticed before. Jungkook picked it up. His name was written across the front, not Jin's, not the group's, his. Jungkook's fingers trembled. Why is my name on this? Jin stared at the envelope. I don't know. Then let's find out. He tore it open. Inside was one photograph and one handwritten sentence. Jungkook looked at the photograph first. His expression immediately changed. Showed him years earlier, standing beside Jin outside a building they had forgot. Behind them stood the same man everyone believed was dead. Jungkook turned the photograph over. On the back were 6 words that made Jin's blood run cold. He RMBRDU before you RMBRDHIM. Jungkook slowly looked at Jin. What does this mean? Jin couldn't answer. Somewhere behind them a phone began ringing. Neither had brought another phone. The ringing continued. Once, twice. 3 times. Jin stood slowly. Jungkook looked toward the darkness. The phone kept ringing. Jin whispered, don't answer it. Jungkook stared at the unseen device. Why? Jin's face had gone pale. Because I know that ringtone. The phone rang again. It's the ringtone I used 6 years ago. Jungkook's eyes widened. And Jin stared into the darkness. I only used it for one person. The ringing stopped. A message appeared on Jungkook's phone. One sentence. Ask Jin what happened to your first memory. Jungkook looked at Jin. Jin stared back at him, completely shaken. For the first time that night, neither of them had an answer. Ask Jin what happened to your first memory. Jungkook read the message again, and something inside him seemed to drop through the floor. The rain had stopped, yet the night felt colder than before. He looked at Jin, waiting for an explanation, but Jin was staring at the phone as if it had become a weapon pointed directly at his chest. What does that mean? Jungkook asked. Jin didn't answer. Hyung, still nothing. Jin finally looked up. His face had lost all color. I don't know. Jungkook laughed once bitterly. You don't know? I don't. You expect me to believe that? Yes, after everything tonight. Jungkook, listen to me. No, you listen to me. Jungkook held up the phone. Someone knows something about my memory, something you apparently know too, and you keep saying you don't know. Jin stepped closer. Because I don't know what they're talking about. Then tell me about my first memory. What do you remember? That's exactly what I'm asking you. Jin closed his eyes. I remember being young, I remember training, I remember meeting everyone, I remember being nervous, I remember you teasing me. Jin's mouth twitched faintly. You were terrified of me at first. You looked intimidating. I was handsome. You were annoying. Same thing. Jungkook almost smiled, but the tension returned immediately. That's not what I mean. Jin nodded. I know. There's something missing. Maybe. What? Jin hesitated. Your first day. Jungkook frowned. What about it? You don't remember everything. Apparently not. Neither do I. Jungkook stared at him. Why? Because that day was complicated. How complicated? Jin looked toward the dark street, enough that people wanted it forgot. Jungkook felt a chill run through him. Who? I don't know. Stop saying that. I'm not lying. Then tell me what you do know. Jin took a slow breath. The first time I saw you, you were younger than I expected. I know. You were quiet. I wasn't quiet. You were with strangers. You barely spoke. I don't remember that. Exactly. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. Why don't I remember? Jin looked at him. Because you were exhausted. That's all. No. Jungkook stepped closer. What happened? Jin hesitated for so long that Jungkook's patience snapped. What happened to me? You collapsed. Jungkook froze. What? You collapsed during training. I don't remember. You were overworked. Who found me? Jin's eyes lowered. I did. And then I took you somewhere safe. Where? An old practice room. Why? Because nobody else was there. Jungkook stared at him. Why would you need to hide me? I didn't hide you. Then why did you take me away? Because you were scared. Of what? Jin's expression changed. Of someone. Who? I don't know. You just said I was scared of someone. You were. Then you must know who. Not necessarily. Hyung, this is ridiculous. I know. No, you don't. You keep giving me fragments and expecting me to accept them. Jin's voice sharpened. Because fragments are all I have. Jungkook stopped. Jin's chest rose and fell. You think I remember everything? I don't. There are pieces missing from my own memory too. Why? I don't know. Who took them? Jin looked at him. Maybe nobody did. Then why can't you remember? Because trauma doesn't always leave clean memories. Jungkook's anger softened for half a second. You were traumatized. Jin looked away. We both were. The sentence sat heavily between them. Jungkook looked at the envelope again. This photograph, he held it up. That's me. Yes, that's you. Yes, and that's the man we thought was dead. Yes, where was this taken? I don't know. You were there. I don't remember. But you were smiling. Jin stared at the photograph. So were you. I don't remember being there. Neither do I. Jungkook's phone vibrated again. Both men froze. Another message. Do you really want to remember? Jungkook stared at the words. Yes. Jin immediately grabbed his hand. No. Jungkook pulled away. Why? Because whoever is sending these messages wants you to react emotionally. Maybe because they're telling the truth. Maybe because they're manipulating you. Then let's find out. How? By asking questions. And if the answers hurt, Jungkook's voice softened. Then you stay with me. Jin stared at him. Always. Then I'm ready. Jin looked toward the abandoned building. We need somewhere safe. Again, yes, you keep saying safe, because right now safe is rare. They returned to the vehicle, but the driver was gone. The driver's door was open. The engine was still running. Jungkook stopped. Where did he go? Jin approached cautiously. I don't know. The driver's phone lay on the seat. Its screen was cracked. A single message was open. Jin picked it up. Don't trust anyone. Jungkook looked at him. Who sent it? Jin shook his head. Unknown number. Of course. He looked around. We're alone. No, Jin's voice was quiet. We're being watched. How do you know? Jin pointed toward a nearby building. A tiny red light blinked from the roof. Camera. Jungkook's stomach tight. How long has that been there? I don't know. Then they saw everything, probably, including the archive. Yes. Jungkook rubbed his face. This is insane. I know. And somehow you still look calm. Jin smiled without humor. I'm not calm. You look calm. I'm terrified. Jungkook looked at him. Really? Yes. Of what? Jin's voice dropped. Losing you. Jungkook's expression softened. You're not going to lose me. Don't promise things you can't control. Then I'll promise something I can control. What? I won't run away. Jin nodded slowly. Good. They drove for nearly an hour before arriving at a small house outside the city. It was old, quiet, and surrounded by trees. Jungkook stepped inside and immediately noticed the smell of dust and cedar. Whose place is this? Mine. You own a secret house. It's not secret. I didn't know it existed, because I never told anyone. Jungkook stared at him. So it is secret. Jin smiled. Maybe. He turned on the lights. The house was surprisingly warm. There were shelves filled with books, old photographs, cooking utensils, and boxes. Jungkook noticed a framed picture on a side table. It showed Jin years younger, standing beside an unfamiliar man. He picked it up. Is that him? Jin looked over. Yes. The man outside. Yes. What's his name? Jin took the frame from Jungkook. Kang Minyu. You trusted him. I did. What happened? Jin sat down. He was part of our security team. How long? 2 years. And then, he disappeared. You said he died. That's what I was told. By whom? Jin stared at the photograph. By the person who hired him. Who? A company. Which company? Jin didn't answer. Jungkook's voice became sharp. Why won't you say it? Because the company doesn't exist anymore. That doesn't matter. It matters if everyone connected to it disappeared too. Jungkook looked at him. Disappeared. Executives, employees, contractors, even the building was demolished. That's convenient. Very. You think they erased themselves. I think someone erased them. Jungkook sat across from him. Tell me about Minyu. Jin rubbed his hands together. He was quiet, extremely observant. He remembered everything. He could walk into a room once and remember every exit. Sounds like you. Maybe that's why I trusted him. And he betrayed you. I don't know. You said he did. I said I thought he did. Jungkook stared at him. What happened between you? Jin swallowed. One night I received a message telling me someone was planning to leak private information. Who? Minyu. He was the one planning it. That's what the message said. And you believed it. I confronted him. What did he say? He denied it. Did you believe him? Jin closed his eyes. I wanted to, but he had access to everything. So you accused him? Yes. And then, he disappeared. Just like that? Yes. And you never looked for him? I did. For how long? Years. Jungkook looked at the photograph again. Maybe he didn't betray you. Jin's expression tight. What are you saying? Maybe someone wanted you to believe he did. Why? Because if you trusted him, you might have discovered the truth. Jin was silent. That's what they want, Jungkook continued. They want you isolated. Jin looked up sharply. What? Think about it. They make you distrust Minyu. Minyu disappears, then they make you believe the archive is dangerous. They make you hide everything. They make me suspicious of you. They keep feeding us information that makes us fight. Jin stared at him. You're saying the entire thing was designed to separate us. Maybe. That's terrifying. Yes, but possible. Exactly. Jin leaned back. You're thinking like Minyu. Jungkook froze. What? He used to think like that. Maybe he was right. Jin looked away. Maybe. A sound came from upstairs. Both froze. Jungkook whispered, did you hear that? Jin stood. Stay here. No, Jungkook. We're past that. Jin grabbed a flashlight. Then stay behind me. Jungkook followed. They climbed the stairs slowly. The wooden steps creaked beneath their weight. At the top was a hallway with 4 doors. Jin opened the first. Empty. Second. Empty. Third. Empty. The 4th door was slightly open. Jin stopped. This wasn't open before. Jungkook whispered, are you sure? Yes. Jin pushed it open. The room was dark. He turned on the light. Nothing. Then Jungkook noticed the wall. Photographs covered it. Hundreds of them. Some were old, some were recent. Most showed members in public places. Restaurants, studios, airports, vehicles, hotels. Jungkook's breathing stopped. Hyung. Jin stepped into the room. Oh my god. There were photographs of Jungkook alone. Jungkook entering buildings, Jungkook leaving rehearsals, Jungkook sleeping in a vehicle, Jungkook laughing with friends, Jungkook looking exhausted. Jin's face hardened. Don't look. Why? Because you don't need to see this. I need to. No, I said I need to. Jungkook moved closer. On one wall was a photograph of him from years ago. He was standing beside Jin. The date beneath it was several months earlier than Jungkook remembered meeting him. Hayoung. Jin looked at it. His expression changed. That's impossible. You said that already. Because it is. The date says we met before we met. Jin walked toward the photograph. His fingers trembled. I don't remember this. Neither do I. Jungkook touched the photograph. Who took it? Jin looked around. Someone who was watching us. Before I became famous. Yes. Why? Jin whispered. I don't know. Jungkook's voice cracked. Maybe I was involved before I even knew it. Jin turned toward him. Don't blame yourself. I'm not. You look like you're blaming yourself. I'm trying to understand. I know. Why do I feel like I've seen this room before? Jin froze. What? This room? Jungkook looked around. I feel like I've been here. Jin's eyes widened. You haven't. I have. No, I remember the smell. He breathed in cedar, dust, old paper. This smell. Jin stared at him. Jungkook. There was a red chair. Jin's face went pale. What? A red chair in the corner. Jin looked around. There was no chair. And someone was sitting there. Who? Jungkook pressed his fingers against his temple. I don't know. Don't force it. I can almost see him. Stop. He was talking to me. Jungkook, he said. Jungkook closed his eyes. He said I had to forget. Jin's face drained of color. Forget what? Jungkook opened his eyes. You, silence. Jin stepped backward. No, he told me to forget you. No, why? Jin shook his head. I don't know. You do. I don't. You know something. Jungkook, I swear I don't. Jungkook's voice became emotional. Then why are you crying? Jin touched his cheek and realized tears were there. He hadn't noticed them. Because I remember now. What? Jin looked at the wall. You weren't supposed to remember. Jungkook stared at him. What happened? Jin's voice broke. You were taken. Taken, not kidnapped. Then what? Someone convinced you to leave with them. Why? They told you they could help. With what? Your anxiety, your exhaustion, your fear. Jungkook's face tightened. I was a kid. Yes, and you let me go. I didn't know. You were there, not at first. Then how did you find me? Jin's voice became almost a whisper. I followed you. Jungkook stared at him. Where? This house. This room. Yes. And then Jin looked down. I found you sitting in that red chair. Jungkook's breath caught. What happened? You were crying. What did I say? You asked me why I hadn't come sooner. Jungkook's eyes filled with tears. I don't remember. I know. What did you do? Jin looked at him. I took you home. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because you were already overwhelmed. That doesn't answer the question. Someone convinced everyone that it was better for you to forget. Jungkook stared at him. Everyone? Yes. Who? Jin hesitated. People we trusted. And you agreed. I was afraid. Of what? Of making it worse. Jungkook's voice rose. You don't get to decide that. I know. Jin shouted back. I know. The room shook with the force of his voice. You think I don't regret it every day? Jungkook stared at him. Then why did you keep quiet? Because I thought forgetting would protect you. It didn't. I know. Jin's voice cracked. I know it didn't. He covered his face. I thought if you couldn't remember you wouldn't be haunted by it. Jungkook's tears fell freely now. But I was haunted anyway. Jin lowered his hands. I know. I had dreams. I know. I was afraid of rooms I couldn't explain. I know. I hated red chairs. Jin nodded. I know. Jungkook stared at him. How long have you known? Since the beginning, and you never told me. No, why? Because I was ashamed. Jungkook turned away. I trusted you. Jin's voice became quiet. I know. I thought you always told me the truth. I tried. Trying isn't enough. Jin nodded. You're right. Jungkook wiped his eyes. I don't know whether to forgive you. You don't have to. Angry? You should be. I'm hurt. I know. And part of me still wants you beside me. Jin looked at him. Then I'll stay, even if I don't forgive you yet. Especially then. Jungkook looked away. A long silence followed. Then the lights in the room flickered. Jin immediately became alert. We need to leave. Why? Someone activated the cameras. How do you know? Jin pointed toward the wall. A tiny red light had appeared. They're watching us. Jungkook looked at the photographs. Let them watch. What? Maybe they want us scared. And maybe we should show them we're not. Jin smiled faintly. That's reckless. Yes, I like it. They walked downstairs. Jin grabbed the archive box. Jungkook picked up the photograph showing the two of them years earlier. We're taking this. Why? Because it's proof. Of what? That someone erased part of our history. Jin nodded. Good. Suddenly a loud crash came from outside. The windows shook. Jungkook jumped. Jin grabbed him. Down. Another impact. Then silence. What was that? Jungkook whispered. Jin looked through the curtain. A car. What happened? Someone drove into the gate. Who? I can't see. Jin moved toward the door. Jungkook grabbed his arm. Don't go. I need to know. You promised. Jin stopped. What? You promised not to carry this alone. Jin looked at him. You're right. They stayed together. A few seconds later someone knocked on the door. Not 3 times, not slowly, desperately. Jin, a voice shouted. Jungkook recognized it. Tim? Jin frowned. Who? One of the members. How did he get here? I don't know. The voice shouted again. Open the door. Jin hesitated. Jungkook looked at him. We can't leave him outside. I know. Then open it. Jin unlocked the door. The member stumbled inside, soaked from the rain, breathing heavily. We have a problem. Jin closed the door. What happened? He looked at Jungkook. Someone came to the dorm. Jungkook's stomach tight. Who? I don't know. Where are the others? Safe. Are you sure? I think so. Jin's face hardened. You think they were separated? What does that mean? Someone sent messages to each of us. Jungkook frowned. What kind of messages? Different messages. What did yours say? He looked at Jin. It said you had betrayed us. Jin froze. Jungkook's face tight. What? Mine said Jin had been hiding something. Jin looked away. What did the others get? Different accusations. They're trying to turn us against each other. Yes. Jin's expression became grim. They're creating chaos. Jungkook looked at the archive. And they want us to blame each other instead of looking for them. The member nodded. Exactly. Suddenly Jin's phone rang, everyone froze, he answered, no one spoke. A distorted voice came through the speaker. You're finally remembering. Jin's face went cold. Who are you? You know me. No, you saw me that night. Jungkook stepped closer. Which night? The voice laughed. The night Jungkook forgot. Jin's eyes widened. What do you want? The archive. You'll never get it. Then we'll take something else. Jin's voice became threatening. Touch him and I swear. That's the problem, Jin, the voice interrupted. You still think Jungkook is the only one we're after? Silence. He's not. Jin's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? We're after the person Jungkook trusts most. Jungkook looked at Jin. Who? The voice laughed. You tell me. The call ended. Jungkook's phone vibrated immediately. A photograph appeared. It showed Jin asleep on a couch. The image was recent, taken inside the house. Jungkook's blood ran cold. They're here. Jin looked at the photograph. Yes, another message appeared. You brought the enemy home. Everyone stared at the words. The member whispered, what enemy? Jin slowly turned toward him. The room became silent. Jungkook looked from Jin to the member. Wait, he felt a sudden memory surface. A hallway, a red chair, a man's voice, a hand on his shoulder. Someone standing behind him. A face, Jungkook gasped. I remember. Jin grabbed him. What? Jungkook stared at the member who had just arrived. His eyes widened with terror. You were there. The member froze. What? That night? Jungkook, I wasn't. You were there. Jin looked between them. Jungkook, calm down. No. Jungkook stepped backward. I remember him. The member's face went pale. You don't. I do. You were unconscious. No. Jungkook's voice trembled. I was awake. Jin stared at him. What did you see? Jungkook looked at the member. You were standing beside the red chair. The member shook his head. That's impossible. You told me to forget. No, you told me Jin couldn't protect me. The member's eyes filled with fear. Jin stepped forward. What is he talking about? The member backed away. I don't know. Look at me. Jin's voice was cold. What happened that night? Nothing. Don't lie. I didn't do anything. Jungkook shouted. Then why do I remember your voice? The member's face crumbled. Because he stopped. Jin stared at him. Because what? The member whispered. Because I was there. Silence. Jungkook's heart seemed to stop. Jin's face became unreadable. Why? The member began crying. I was told to go. By whom? I don't know. Who told you? Someone from management. Name. I can't. Name. Jin shouted. The member flinched. I don't know his name. Then what did he want? He told me to convince Jungkook that Jin couldn't be trusted. Jungkook stared at him. Why? Because they wanted you separated. Who are they? I don't know. You're lying. I'm not. Then tell me everything. The member dropped to his knees. I was scared. Jin stared at him. So was I know. And you still did it. I'm sorry. Jungkook's eyes filled with tears. You were someone I trusted. I know. You stood there while I was terrified. I know. And you said nothing. The member covered his face. I was wrong. Jungkook looked at Jin. This is what you were protecting me from. Jin's voice broke. Yes. And now we face it. Jungkook nodded slowly. The archive box sat between them. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. Somewhere in the darkness, a branch struck the window. Nobody spoke. Then Jin opened the archive. We're done hiding. He pulled out the first document. Whatever happens next, we uncover everything. Jungkook stood beside him. Together. Jin looked at him. Together. The member wiped his eyes and stood. I'm helping. Jin stared at him. You have a lot to prove. I know. Then prove it. Suddenly the house lights went out. Everyone froze. A phone vibrated on the table. Jungkook looked down. There was one new message. You finally RMEMBRED the wrong person. Jungkook's blood ran cold. He looked toward Jin. What does that mean? Jin stared at the darkness. It means. He swallowed. Someone wants us to think we found the traitor. A faint sound came from upstairs. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Jungkook whispered, but we're all here. Jin looked toward the staircase. The footsteps stopped. Then a voice came from the darkness above them. No, you're not. Jungkook's heart slammed against his ribs. Jin stepped in front of him. Stay behind me. This time Jungkook didn't argue. He simply reached for Jin's hand. And together they stared into the darkness as another figure slowly appeared at the top of the stairs.